All right, guys. So thanks for tuning in today. I'm here with one of my former coaches and former teammates, Mike Moronese. You go ahead and introduce yourself, Coach. If you can do a handshake.
Good to see you, Garrett. Good to see you, Garrett.
Yeah.
I'm Coach Mike, former Ursinus football player, class of 2015. I graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Exercise and Physiology. Right after graduating, kind of went into work into the personal training world. Was working at a place called Level 40 Training that I'd interned for a couple years. Left there, got a high school counseling job, figured it was time to be, an adult, try to find my way into the high school coaching world, get a little more experience doing a lot of things. One day I got a call from Coach Gallagher, the head football coach here, and he was offering a coaching job at defensive line. I wanted to coach powerlifting. I wanted to get into the coaching world because I had my CSCS with the NSCA, Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist certification, for those of you that don't know what the CSCS is. And wanted to get into that world, but I figured, I couldn't leave football alone. It was my first love. I was still really passionate about it, and this was a place I loved being, so I came back. And shortly after the season, was looking for a place to work, found some internships online, interviewed at a bunch of different spots like Penn, Rutgers. There was an internship at Harvard. Ended up interning at Rutgers for 6 months. While I was there, I also found out that the assistant strength coach job for Ursinus opened up, got a referral, and came back the next, that summer and was working as an assistant strength and conditioning coach as well as a football coach. So the road was kind of all over the place, but being 25, having, coaching experience with football and strength and conditioning, I couldn't ask for a better gig, especially at my alma mater and working with a lot of familiar faces and being able to coach former teammates and have a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's definitely been awesome. Coach Mike was a captain when I was a freshman here. He was a senior, so that was awesome to have him then, and having him come back for my last 2 years of football. Couldn't ask for a better situation with a coach, so thanks, Coach, for doing this today.
My pleasure.
Basically, the point of doing this kind of stuff is, I've trained about 7 kids now in speed and agility training. One, you have a ton of knowledge with this kind of stuff. You've done the whole training your whole athletic career. But 2 is that, these kids have a lot of questions. A lot of them are looking to get into playing college football. So, hearing from a college football coach, not just college football, but college sports in general, but hearing from a college coach, hearing from someone who's been through the recruiting process, who's trained their whole life is really helpful. And then, also we might get into a little bit later, dealing with some, mental issues on the field, dealing with some emotions on the field. I know you can definitely touch on that kind of stuff. I know.
Yes, sir.
We'll go through some questions here, and hopefully this will be of great value to some people in your network, some people in my network, the kids watching. So
sounds good.
That's
Let's
it.
get to it.
Yeah. So I guess, Coach, just start me off. You kind of already talked about how you got into coaching, but how'd you get into playing football as a young kid? I guess and then how did that lead you to Ursinus as a player?
I think my football journey started much like every other kid's journey. Everybody wants to play sports as a kid. You see them on TV. Dad, you play catch in the backyard with Dad or whoever is around, and you play little backyard games at school. And as a kid, I think I first started playing sports when I was 6.
Yeah.
I played baseball, basketball, and soccer. My dad wouldn't let me play football at that young age. He was like, I don't want you to get injured. I wasn't the smallest of kids, but I wasn't the biggest of kids. So he's like, let's try everything else out first. And I really love basketball, watching TV, looking at guys like Michael Jordan, like Allen Iverson, every couple of days on TV. It's like, I really want to be like those guys.
Yeah.
Baseball was kind of more on my dad's thing. He wanted me to be, really good at that. But it was still a lot of fun to watch, When I was growing up, it was guys like Mark McGwire and Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa and Ken Griffey. So it was like,
steroid era.
Yeah, you get a lot of big hitters and a lot of guys with big names, you know, making a big impact on the game. So it was a very exciting time
Yeah.
as a kid to be like, yo, I'm coming up the bat. I'm going to smack it out of the park like Barry Bonds, or like, I'm going to pull a Sammy Sosa here. You know, but once, you know, I watched football, it was just entirely different.
Yeah.
Seeing guys suited up in pads, making noise, hitting each other, tackling each other to the ground. It just, you know, it was just interesting to me, and I wanted to be a part of that. My dad didn't let me play until I got kicked out of every single soccer game my first year playing. I got a lot of red cards because I was way too physical because I watched way too much football. So when people would get in my way, instead of like, oh, I'm going to run around you, you know, beginning of the game, that works. And then you start to get angry because your team is down or you want to score and somebody gets in your way. You start to push, you start to shove, you start to slide tackle, things like that.
Right.
So after that, my dad was kind of like, yeah, maybe you need to play football because you're a little bit too aggressive. So I think I started when I was 8.
Okay.
Started playing pound ball. Just really loved it. Loved, you know, like I said, wasn't the biggest kid, wasn't the smallest, but I loved going up against bigger guys and be like, hey, I'm not a chump.
Yeah. Tough.
Just loved hitting people, loved being on the team aspect and being able to encourage the guys next to me and, you know, have a sense of, you know, brotherhood because I grew up with 2 sisters. I didn't grow up in a house full of guys. My dad ended up moving to Georgia when I was 12, so then it became my mom, 2 sisters, and myself. So, you know, being around a group of guys that really embraced you and kind of brought you up a lot meant a lot to me. So, you know, through the years, kept playing, stuck with it, got to high school, was really good academically, went to public school in Philly, which isn't saying much, but I was, you know, all honors classes, had some AP credits to my name, was in a lot of academic enrichment stuff, you know, graduated with like a 3.7, and looking at colleges, you know, I wasn't that 6'2", running a 4.6, you know, gonna get recruited to go to Temple or wherever, you know, Florida, like, I wasn't getting recruited to big name schools.
Right.
It was a lot of schools that were just like, hey, like, you can come get an education here
Right.
and play football.
Right.
And I was just like, you know what? I kind of need a degree if I, you know, want to get a good job in what I want to do in life. So, you know, visiting different schools. I visited, you know, Stony Brook, visited Lafayette, visited a couple schools in the Centennial like McDaniel, Moravian. But when I came to Ursinus, it was just that initial experience of like, this is a brotherhood, this is a family, and guys are encouraging and picking you up that I felt as a kid when I first, you know, started playing, that really just connected me, not just to this team, but to this school.
Yeah.
Because it was that same exact environment that I was yearning for. You know, when I was 8 years old and I started playing, I was like, this is exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I could come here and smack my teammate and then we could go to dinner together.
Yeah.
And it'd be, you know, all good. So that's what kind of led me to Ursinus. And the fact that, you know, even on my visit, the guys who I had my visit with were cool as hell.
Yeah.
So it's just like, you know, every other visit I had, it was kind of like, you're on your own and they'll take you out at night, but it's kind of like you're not even a freshman. So it's like, oh, this is my recruit. And you're kind of like that awkward, like, oh, like, don't do anything with that kid because he's, like, you know, still in high school.
Yeah, right.
Whereas here, you come here and it's just like, hey, guys, this is Mike. And it's just like, what's up, Mike? You know, you want a drink? You want to, you know, we got the game on. Have a seat. And it's like, that's it. Nobody's going to make me feel, you know, out of place because I'm still in high school. Nobody cared. It was just like, you're here, you're one of us.
Yeah.
And, you know, that is why I chose Ursinus, to both attend school, play football, and to come back to work.
Yeah.
Because it's just a great, accepting community.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to push you on a couple of those points. So yeah, I can definitely relate. I played at Ursinus too for 4 years, and I pretty much came for the same reasons, right? I also have 3 sisters, so in my whole football career, I was yearning for that brotherhood. Didn't always have it throughout my youth football career. I had a lot of teams that weren't so great. People weren't really dedicated. And then in high school it was a similar story. We weren't very good, and I kind of felt like I was on my own. But the second I got here, and I started to feel that, started to feel welcoming, started to feel like the guys really wanted to be your friend and care about you. So that drew me, one, to the game as a young kid, as the appeal of it. And then when I started to get more of a taste of it coming to Ursinus on my visits, that's when I was like, this is the place for me. So, you know, anybody looking for a college, you know, that's something to consider. What are the people like? What are your future teammates like? You know, those are the guys, those are the girls you're going to be spending the next, 4 years with. So it's important. And then, also you talked a little bit about, being like pretty aggressive as a young kid. I mean, not everybody, has it in their heart to give up the game of soccer, and go play football. Some kids, they really love soccer. That's their sport. So, what could you say to a kid who might be feeling those same aggressions but really loves the game of soccer, wants to stick with it? Can they rely on that brotherhood or that sisterhood to kind of help control those emotions? Maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
When it comes to multiple sports, I played, baseball and basketball up until I was about 13 because their seasons were different than football.
Right.
But when it comes to, multiple sports that are kind of in the same season, I think every team in every sport has its own dynamic. I think the dynamic with football tends to be a lot more, for lack of a better word, close and intimate than any other sport, not just because of the physicality and how much we're actually touching each other, but because of the nature of how tough the sport is itself and how it's played.
Right.
When you play soccer, you tend to be dispersed all among the field. A lot of times it's a one-man show. A guy gets the ball, he goes on a break, he makes a couple moves, he gets a big pass, and then that guy scores. And it's like, hey, there's a bunch of other guys on the field as well. And it's hard to notice that because when most people watch soccer, yeah, you watch the guy with the ball and the guy against him, but the only guy that most people tend to really know is the guy who's scoring.
All right.
Not many people are going to sit there and know defenders or, know midfielders who aren't great scorers or even know goalkeepers. You ask people who, play FIFA or, people in other countries where it's a little bit bigger, yeah. But guys who play football, you got cornerbacks who are household names. And it's not like those guys are scoring 4 touchdowns a game.
Yeah.
And it's the way you line up. You're lining up next to a guy.
Yeah.
There's constant communication, and even outside of just the general on the field stuff, it's like you have meetings.
Yeah.
You have this giant playbook that you have to help each other out with. The training with football tends to be a lot more difficult where, when I trained for soccer, I used to practice with my dad. He'd take me, kick the ball around, do some cone drills.
Right.
I can do that by myself.
Yeah.
I can't come in a weight room and squat heavy by myself.
Yeah.
You need someone else with football. You can't do it alone. Where you can be a one-man star in baseball, in basketball, in soccer. It's difficult. Don't get me wrong. You still need guys, to pass, play defense, goalkeeper. But you can be a one-man star.
Right.
But with football, you can't because if you're a quarterback and you don't have an offensive line, you will never complete a pass.
Absolutely.
If you're a linebacker but you don't have a defensive line or a secondary behind you to kind of force the ball to your area, you'll never have tackle.
Yeah.
And it's, you feed off of everybody, not just assignment-wise, but energy-wise and life-wise, because if I'm lining up next to you and I can tell you're having a bad day, man, you're pissed, and I'm pissed, and now the guy next to me is pissed, and the guy across from him is pissed, and now practice sucks. And now we're getting in fights, and now the chemistry's all off, whereas if you're having a bad day, but you're the goalkeeper, the other guys on the soccer field aren't doing it. So I would say follow where you feel the greatest chemistry, the greatest link to your teammates. And if that is with soccer, go with it.
Right.
Because, you don't want to betray your heart.
Right.
Everybody always says follow your heart, but it's also you kind of have to have an intuition of the mind to say, this is where the breeding ground of not only, my athletic development is, but my character, my chemistry, me learning how to work with somebody else and work through these issues and work towards something greater than just like, I want to be good at this sport.
Yeah.
Because a lot of guys who play football, when they quit playing football, it's not just I missed the game, they miss the moments in the locker room.
Yeah.
They miss training with guys. They miss being around that team aspect where, you miss playing football, but there's so much more that goes into it. And there's so many lessons that a football player is going to learn that a lot of other, sports players can't learn because their sport isn't demanding that of them.
Yeah.
And it's, as a coach, you can't force those demands. It's just the nature of the sport.
Yeah.
So my biggest, key things, I know I kind of rambled there, would be, follow your heart, but kind of have the intuition of the mind to know where the chemistry is, what the bigger purpose is, how that's going to develop, and really look at, not just the team that you're on, but other teams that you kind of see in the news or, in games and stuff, because, I can watch the Real Madrid and I can tell that their team has a lot of chemistry. And that's great. That would make me want to stay in soccer, especially if my heart is already leaning towards that. But if I look and I see other teams where it's just like, oh, it's Manchester United and they look like they're just all over the place. But then I go and watch football and it's like, hey, all 12 of these teams are really, standing together. They're united. They talk good about each other in interviews. You see guys hanging out in the off season. Like, those are the kinds of things that you want to look for. And if you on your team as well, it's like, I have a much better relationship with, my position coach, my head coach, and the guys on my team than I do on my soccer team, or vice versa. Kind of stick with that, because those being in an environment that you're comfortable and able to grow is going to mean a lot more than just, I'm really good at this sport.
Right.
Now, eventually you won't be on that team, but the way you perform will be affected.
Yeah.
And that's, that's the big, kicker for a lot of people that they don't realize, is that if I go somewhere where I'm uncomfortable and I don't feel wanted or appreciated, my performance is going to suffer over time.
For
Whereas
sure.
you come, here, I was able to not just grow as an athlete, because, my first year I had my freshman struggles like everybody does. But over time, I kept getting better and better because I felt comfortable. I knew I was accepted. I knew people wanted me to succeed. If I had those same problems somewhere else where I was dealing with them alone and didn't feel accepted, I probably would have dropped out.
Yeah.
And football wouldn't have meant anything at that point because so many other things were, in shambles.
Yeah.
But I knew that this team environment helped me grow and helped me surpass my own personal problems, because the bigger purpose of what this team and this, program stood for was more than just football.
Yeah.
And I think that means a lot to where you're deciding what sport to play. It's like, what's bigger in the purpose beyond the sport.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're not going to be playing forever, right? We're both done playing now, and
exactly.
Kind of, you have the memories, and you're always going to have them. But what else are you really taking away?
What's really special about football too, is special and kind of detrimental, is that you can't really pick up and play a football game. I can't get pads on and hand out playbooks and say, all right, guys, this Saturday, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
I can pick up a soccer ball and have a couple nets and, go kick a ball around and, get some guys from the neighborhood and do that. And most people understand, like, screens and passes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But if I say we're running 42 fly here, or, 87 Vermont, nobody's going to know what the hell I'm talking about. And that's the kind of thing, is like football, you get such a limited time frame to really be a part of a competitive organization.
Yeah.
Because once it's done and you're not eligible to kind of compete, and it's just like, hey, you can either go pro or go home.
Yeah.
You kind of have to, go one or the other.
Yeah.
Whereas soccer, it's like, I can go home and, play in a rec league up at the mall.
Exactly.
They don't really have rec leagues
for
washed up college football athletes.
Right. Yeah, flag, but
but it's like, for all that, I could just play catch with my dad again.
Yeah. Football is a very special sport, and, the case where you can't play it after, you're pretty much done. Once, if you're not going pro, you're pretty much done playing it. You can get a pickup game, you get a flag game. It's not really the same. So, that stuff that you take away, the friendships you make, that stuff becomes all that more important, because that's really all you're gonna have after your time's over. So it's definitely important. You touched on all this, but it's important for kids, anyone playing, to really think about their teammates and think about the sport that you're playing, and whether or not your personality fits into that sport and the framework of that sport and the culture of that sport, and also, is there room for you to grow and develop as a player, either on the team that you're on or in the sport that you're in. So those are definitely important things for young kids, maybe either deciding what kind of sport to play, or maybe kids playing multiple sports, deciding what sport to pursue further in college or high school. So that's great stuff. Really great stuff. I played football, baseball, and basketball when I was young, and then ended up going to high school. Only actually dropped baseball and basketball, stuck with football because that's where my heart was at from the time I was like 5 years old, or I think I was 4 years old. My dad took me to the field and was like, look, like, you know, check this out. What do you think? In a year from now, you could play. And that's that. From that moment, I still remember it. That might be my earliest memory in my brain is seeing that field. And yeah, like I said, it just clicked for me, and turned out I was pretty damn good as well. And you know, all that stuff we were just talking about, it all I checked every box for me. But really, when I got to high school, it was more of, you know, my heart wasn't in the other two sports, and I started running track basically just to train for football. You know, and I ended up getting into track, but that's...
Which, on that note, is very good from a coaching perspective. You know, you want to see kids who run track, because kids who don't run track and play football, usually to a coach that means one of two things. Either he's slow or he's hiding something. You don't have to run when you run track, because they have shot put, they have javelin, they have hammer, you know, they have the 60-meter, you know, the 100-meter hurdle, 400 hurdle, relay team, stuff like that. But it's a great way to stay in shape. And in high school, it's just a great way to kind of learn your fundamental, especially if you don't have a trainer, you know, your fundamental running techniques. You know, you want to learn how to sprint, you want to learn how to accelerate. This is a great way to do it. So that's, you know, that is something. And the thing is, most track coaches aren't going to sit there and say, hey, you're not, you know, the most passionate about track. A lot of them understand that, hey, this is a gateway for the kid who's playing spring lacrosse or playing fall football or so on and so forth. Or, you know, there's cross-country kids out there that never play sports, but they just want to do something, and, you know, they may not love it, but it's something for them to be involved in. And I think track is unique in that sense, to where it's like, hey, we want you to compete, we want you to enjoy it, but we also understand this isn't like a full-time commitment for a lot of people. And a lot of track coaches are very understanding of that, which is very unique and special in and of itself, and something that you should be grateful for, but also take advantage of. Because those are very special coaches and very special programs. And if they're going to be like that, definitely take that opportunity. Use it as a tool to grow.
And, you know,
just plug the charger in and then it still goes.
Just to touch on track, too, while we're on the subject, I mean, you know, track is a very different sport from pretty much everything we mentioned, because it's mainly an individual sport. I mean, even in a relay, when you're relying on other guys to carry the baton, your performance is still, you know, highly correlated, you're personal to the team's success. So it's like, you know, that's something else you might think about. Maybe you're just not meant for a team sport. Like, some people, that their personalities just clash with others. You know, I always found it was interesting with track. I probably developed a lot personally myself in track, because you're always challenging yourself. You know, you're practicing with your teammates, and you're getting better together, and you're lifting together and running together. But, you know, when it comes time to run, it's really you out there versus yourself. And it's like, how hard am I willing to push myself to perform and to meet my goals? So track's an interesting sport, and
track is interesting in that same respect. Things like wrestling.
I
had a lot of friends and a lot of your teammates over the 4 years who wrestled and played football, and it's one of those things where it's still a team sport in the fact that each, you know, wrestling meet that you go to, they take the total from each team, but you're the only one on that mat from your side when you're on that mat, you know. And, you know, for 4 years of high school, my wrestling coach tried to recruit me to the team. I used to go to a couple practices and run around, mess around, roll around, you know. And I, you know, in hindsight, I probably should have wrestled, because it would have been a great way to stay in shape and, you know, kind of just have that tenacity, still have that physical aspect in my life, and, you know, form some good relationships, because I got along great with the wrestling coach. He was also an English teacher of mine, very good disciplinarian at our school. And, you know, that would have been great for some personal development. Like you said, when you're running out there, it's just you and yourself. When you're on the mat, it's, you know, you and that guy, but everything you do is kind of just for you, you know, that larger team aspect. You can't contribute when that next guy's on the mat, because, you know, you're off, you're just cheering him on. So it's not like being on a field where it's like, I do my job, he does his, and the play happens. It's like, no, you either win or you don't. You got to kick that guy's butt, or you got to get over that hurdle, or you got to cross that finish line first, because nobody can do anything for you. Nobody can kind of cover your mistakes by making a play. So very, very unique in that aspect. And if you're a person who's, you know, you're very intrinsically motivated, where you're driven towards a goal, if you establish that, you know, standard for yourself, you're going to go get it. People like that do really well with individual sports, especially, you know, young kids who are just like, I know what I want to do. Go for it, man.
Yeah.
Don't just sit there and be like, I don't want to run track or wrestle because it's gonna distract me from that. It's good to be multidimensional. It's good to be a jack of all trades.
Yeah, I agree.
So.
Yeah, I was always pushed to do that and try everything and just see what sticks and
see what sticks. See what you like.
Yeah, because
when you're young, you don't fully know. Like you have an idea.
Right.
But you still got to learn some things to see what you really like.
Yeah. So, I mean, really what we're preaching here is just kind of like self-awareness and, knowing yourself, knowing what you're good at, knowing what your personality is and how that gels with other people's. And that stuff's important when, picking a sport and then later down the line picking a college and kind of going out throughout life is just something that's very key to, when you go ahead and start getting a job, you got to. It's all the same stuff, right?
It's all the same stuff.
What environment do I fit in well, and how can I attribute to that environment and grow personally? It's the same things we've been talking about.
Very, very similar concepts throughout life. From my father's side of the family, he would say, I'm very hard-headed, very stubborn, which I agree. But and my mom would say, I have to learn stuff the hard way. And what I think she means by that is, some people have to make mistakes to learn the right way to do it.
Yeah.
And I think everyone learns best through experience, whether it's visual or vicarious or physical.
Right.
If you see yourself kind of go through it, or if you go through it yourself, I think it sticks a little bit more than if you watch someone else. But people can learn either way.
Yeah.
But never just go with what first presents itself and fully commit to it.
Yeah, right.
If you're going on college visits or, whatever, go to a couple.
Yeah.
Go to a few, like you said, see what sticks. If you're playing sports, try out a few at first.
Yeah.
Don't just say, I've seen football on TV, that's the only sport I want to play.
Yeah.
Give a couple of shots, because you might end up liking baseball more.
Yeah.
You may end up liking track or wrestling more. Give it a couple shots. Just like your first job, don't just say, this is the only job I'm ever going to have in my life. It's okay to sit there and be like, hey, I had a job when I was 16, bagging up groceries at Giant. I didn't like it. I don't want to, bag groceries at Giant until I'm 65 and retire.
Yeah.
I want to do something else, coming out of college. Hey, I'm personal training at this place right now, but maybe I want to go to a bigger facility. Maybe I want to open up my own facility.
Yeah.
Maybe instead of just personal training, I want to, do a little teaching on the side.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It's okay to kind of experiment, be curious, like you said. Being self-aware, you have to be a little bit curious because you have to build that awareness somehow.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not just gonna know. It's just like, oh yeah, totally. This is it. You gotta be a little bit curious, try some things out, and then say, hey, like something's telling me this isn't for me.
Yeah, and that's important too. Yeah. Being able to recognize that.
And sometimes you push through some of the hard times and realize it's like, do I not really like this, or is it just a challenge for me right now? First little side story. First couple of months working at Rutgers were probably like the hardest months of my life. Started in January, got in a car accident January I think 26th, which is a couple days after my birthday. Wrecked car, so I couldn't leave Rutgers campus. I was living in the stadium pretty much as was, but I couldn't leave. I wasn't getting paid, so I didn't really have money for a new car or any kind of income. Ended up somehow getting a new car because I had some money saved up. And then in March, we had an apartment fire. And I was only going home on weekends because the rest of the week I was staying in the stadium. So we were technically homeless now. So now it's basically all the money I saved up, gone. Had to get a car so I could, go back and forth when I'm not at my internship. The house that I was going to when I wasn't at my internship was now a pile of ashes.
Yeah.
Still wasn't getting paid. And it was just kind of like trying to figure out what the hell am I doing while I'm not getting paid. I'm at this internship. Sometimes up to like 14 hours a day. There'd be, every day we started at 4 a.m. That's just, you get in at 4, first workout's at 5, you set up, make sure everything's good to go, ready to rock and roll, get your coaching hat on, put your big boy pants on. Boom. Some days we'd be there until 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Hey, we have a big workout tomorrow. We're going to set some stuff up tonight. We need you guys here to clean. We need to review some stuff. Cool. Some days we'd be out at noon. Hey, we're done for today. We're going to have some coaches meetings. You guys don't need to stick around.
Yeah.
If you want to stick around, you can.
Yeah.
So, but if I sat there and I was just like, man, I don't have a car. I'm living in the stadium. I can't go home on the weekends because there is no home to go to. I could have quit that internship right there and be like, man, strength coaching isn't for me. This stuff's too rough. Because then everything else, at work gets more stressful. When the kid can't do a face pull because he doesn't know where his face is, and he's sitting there pulling the band to his hips, and it's like, dude, we're doing face pulls today. Face pull, how do you do that? Stuff like that tends to irritate you a little bit more, especially when you're, you still have bills to pay, you still have student loans. And I could have said, screw it, I'll go get a job doing something where I'll get paid, but I enjoyed what I was doing. It was still fun, even though it was stressful, so I was like, let me stick with it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna find a way out of this hole. So don't just quit on stuff when you get on hard times, because some things are hard and you may not think it's for you, but it's not that, that isn't for you. It's that you're hitting some bumps in the road.
Yeah.
And that happens, that just doesn't mean that you get out the car and walk because the road's bumpy. Sometimes you got to go over a couple bumps in the road till you hit the highway. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great story, and I'm sure you've learned a lot, and through that experience, I think as humans, it's just our nature. We all kind of go through different things. Some a lot worse than others.
Yeah.
That's a rough summer.
Yeah.
But also, we all deal with them in different ways.
Right.
So, maybe you could just touch on real quick, and then we'll maybe finish up here. How did you? It's a tough time. What kind of strategies or anything did you go by to kind of get through that?
So dealing, and I know this is a big issue in the training world and the sports world as well, but when you come across issues, both physical, mental, emotional, I think the biggest thing to focus on is kind of the present moment and the big picture. A lot of times people get hung up on one or the other, and I think they forget how to tie both of them together. The biggest thing for me at that time was kind of realizing, right now sucks, but it's not permanent. Yes, I didn't have a car. Yes, you may be injured at the time, but don't forget about the big picture while you're focusing on the present moment. So people, and I know you had some hip injuries, some back injury stuff, and it's like you get hurt, and a lot of guys, they go, they get depressed.
Yeah.
And that's understandable. I'm not telling you not to be sad.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you not to be upset when you're hurt. That's okay.
Yeah.
Let it out. Feel it.
Yeah.
But realize, just because you're hurt doesn't mean you're done.
Yeah.
And, realize the big picture of, hey, I have a season to recover. I have coaches, I have trainers, I have resources to get better. I realized I had guys in my internship, coaches that cared. Coaches were saying, hey, if you need somewhere to stay, I'll drive you to my house. You can sleep on my futon, sleep on my couch. The people at Rutgers, I was sleeping in the stadium. Hey, if you need some extra food, the kitchen's unlocked. You can just go in there and, snag some stuff. We have food out here all night. I was sleeping on a couch on the third floor, like, in the press box. They were just like, yeah, you can eat whatever you want. You can stay here. If here's the players' lounge is downstairs. Here's the key code, all that. So use the resources around you, and that's part of focusing on the present moment, But don't forget about the big picture. If your big picture is you want to keep playing football or keep playing your sport, just because you're injured, it doesn't mean you're done. It means now you need to start resting, recovering, rehabbing, taking care of yourself, reading stuff, learning about your injury, learning how to prevent it in the future, or other injuries that you might need to prevent. When you hit hard times in life, read stuff about how to get over it. Read stuff that might encourage you, inspire you. Talk to the people around you. Don't go into a show and be like, I feel bad. I don't want to make other people feel bad. No, talk to other people so they can help you not feel bad.
Yeah.
A lot of times the first instinct when it's like I'm hurt or I'm sad or things are getting rough, it's kind of to isolate yourself because it's like, I don't want to get on anybody else's nerves and sound like I'm complaining. And I still have that habit. I'm 25 and I still do that. Like a bill will smack me and I'll just be like, I'm broke for like the next 2 weeks. I don't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Or, I play league rugby right now and I got some injuries going on. It's like, I don't want to talk to anybody. Like, I feel like crap. But that's not how, if you feel like crap, you can't help yourself not feel like crap.
Yeah.
So trying to, pull yourself out of that hole when you're in a down position doesn't work.
Yeah.
You got to talk to somebody who can kind of give you some insight from an upper level. Like, hey, Mike, you're injured. Okay, we get it. It sucks. You can't do everything you can now, but realize yeah, you have a sprained ankle, or yeah, your hip is messed up, but you still have another hip. You know, your hip's not completely torn off.
Yeah.
You still have 2 functioning legs. You can still rehab it and get it strong.
Yeah.
You can still do stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you still have time. You still have resources. You have a trainer and training rooms. So, you know, yeah, you don't have a car, but you have people who can give you rides. You have ways, you know, you might be able to call your parents and get some money to help you, you know, maybe rent something. But don't just shut down.
Yeah.
You know, don't lose sight of the big picture and think in the present moment of how to get over your situation.
Right.
Because a lot of people, like I said, you know, they focus on, oh, I'm injured, I'm hurt, or this happened, and they focus so much on the event that they don't tend to think how to fix it, how to get over it, how to get back to that big picture and see how everything kind of ties in.
Yeah.
And, you know, as a coach, you know, it's easier for me to recognize in players, especially since I played, when those things kind of happen.
Yeah.
You see a guy make a mistake or get hurt, and he immediately goes to that moment and just keeps reliving it. Keeps reliving the play he got injured or the play he dropped a pass, and it's like, dude, thinking about that ain't going to help you catch the next ball.
Yeah.
You know, yes, realize what you did wrong. Oh, I didn't have my hands ready. I didn't turn my head around quick enough. You know, it took me too long to get off the jam, or my foot got stuck and I turned the wrong way and I messed up my head. Realize what you did wrong and focus on it. Okay, good. You figured it out. Now big picture time. What happened in that moment that you don't need to do or that you need to fix for the big picture? How do you move on to the future? Because if you sit there and dwell on it too long, you get stuck in that moment. And now every other moment just becomes that moment, or the focus of every moment becomes whatever happened before. So now instead of going out to practice and, you know, being able to catch, you're thinking about that ball you dropped. Or all weekend you're thinking coach is going to chew me out in film. Instead of thinking, hey, there's still 62 other plays of this game where I can make a play.
Yeah.
Or I still have, you know, 32 practices left where I can run around and have fun.
Yeah.
Now you're just reliving in that kind of moment of, oh, this is the play I got injured, or this is what happened, or I don't want to go to work because now I have this bill that's going to, you know, kill me and I don't want to think about
Yeah.
it. So don't think too much on the present moment. Focus on the moment and how it, you know, ties into the big picture.
Yeah.
Because if you focus on one or the other, you tend to not think of the links that need to be there. Because if you think about the big picture and it's just like, oh, I wanted to be a good football player, but now my hip is hurt, I'll never be a good football player. You're forgetting about that transition there. Now you're not even thinking about how you hurt it or what needs to be done to prevent that, you know, that moment where it happened and, you know, all the things that could be fixed. You're just thinking about how you'll never get to the big picture. And having that link established, I think, is what really helped me and helps a lot of guys, you know, on the team. And even girls that, you know, come in the strength and conditioning, you know, workouts and stuff, helps them kind of get through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Because you need to kind of know how you can move on.
Yeah.
And I think knowing how or having somebody there to help you move on is, you know, very paramount to making progress in not just sports but in life.
Yeah. For sure.
So hopefully I'm not rambling too
No,
much
that
here.
was awesome stuff. I mean, you know, key points of that are focusing on the present and on the big picture at the same time. If you're young, right, you got time.
Yeah.
You know, if you're,
Plenty of time.
you know, you can take a season off. It's not going to kill you in the long
Right.
run. Whereas if you're a senior in college with 10 games left, there's no time to waste.
Right.
You know, drowning in your sorrows. Like, go out there and start doing what it takes to get yourself better, and, you know, get yourself back and get back out there. So I mean, I've had, like you said, I've had a ton of injuries. It's easy to fall into the pattern of putting your head between your legs and, you know, not wanting to do anything. But there's always a plan of action.
Right.
There's always something you can be doing, and, you know, it normally ends up if you start doing that stuff, you get yourself back out there, and along with that comes your mental, your emotional state coming back up as well. So.
Yeah. With injuries, some things I really focus on is just rest, recovery, and rehab and reaching out. For those 4 things, especially when, you know, as an athlete you get injured, it's important for you to rest. Not just your body, but your mind. You know, injuries don't just heal overnight, and whatever trauma you have mentally associated with it isn't going to disappear. You know, you kind of need to come off the gas a little bit, put the brakes on. Obviously, recovery, you know, everybody talks about rice and icing things and all that. Yeah, you need to, but you also need to make sure like you're putting the right things in your body. I know a lot of guys, especially college athletes, you get sad, you start drinking a little bit. Alcohol ain't gonna help you get any better.
Yeah.
You know, as a kid, if you're injured and you're like, oh, I can stay home now and, you know, eat Twinkies on the couch, that's not gonna help you. So doing the right things in your recovery and your rehab, once you kind of talk to your trainers or your doctors or your coaches about what you need to do to get back on the field, is huge. But don't forget to reach out. People, humans are tribal animals. We are not designed to just survive on our own. We are built to be in communities. We are built to talk to each other. We are built with individual skill sets that help build the community. Whether you're a farmer and I'm a carpenter, or somebody's a good teacher and somebody else is great with raising kids, we're all built to create a village and kind of uplift each other. So always reach out, because somebody might know something or be able to help you in a way that you can't just help yourself.
Yeah.
So those, 4 things are always huge, and you can take those into, any aspect of life. Something happens, back up for a second, take a break, rest. How do you recover? You start doing the right things. You kind of realize where you went wrong, and you kind of reverse that and correct it. Your rehab is, whether it's a car injury or, getting in a car accident, it's kind of just getting back to your daily routine with slight modifications. If me getting back to work after, a car accident, and I have to coach a little bit differently so I'm not blowing my lid at everything, that's part of my rehab. If I got to take a couple deep breaths or, talk to somebody else, that's fine. And make sure I reach out, because, it's hard being in situations, whether it's financial, physical, emotional, whether it's a breakup, whatever. Reach out, talk to somebody, because somebody might have experience and knowledge that you don't.
Yeah.
And, having all the resources you can is helpful.
Yeah. Awesome. That was really great. I mean, I think we can pretty much wrap it up there.
Cool.
We touched on a lot of stuff. I think this will be really, really extremely helpful for anyone going through adversity, whether it's in sports or in your life, or looking to play a sport in college, looking to potentially switch sports, or deciding on what sport to play, what college to go to. I think we covered a lot of that stuff. Thanks so much, Coach. Taking a lot of time.
My pleasure, man.
Yeah.
Anything for you.
For sure. I mean, he's working full time and busting his butt, and so him taking this time, that's really great to help you guys out. So thanks a lot, and we'll wrap it up there.
My pleasure. Awesome. Great being here.